Okay, let's unpack this. We often hear names from history, figures so iconic they almost become caricatures. Today, we're diving into one such legend, Florence Nightingale, the Lady of the Lamp.
Huh.
But what if I told you the lamp was just the beginning? A simple, poetic symbol of a far deeper, more revolutionary light she shone on the world. A light forged in numbers and unwavering conviction.
Hmm.
Our mission today is to go far beyond that famous image and truly explore the incredible depth of her contributions. We've got a stack of fascinating sources here, detailed biographies, meticulous historical accounts, even insights into her seemingly unexpected mathematical prowess that reveal a woman who was not merely a compassionate caregiver.
Not at all.
No, Florence Nightingale was a fierce statistician, a pioneering public health expert, and a social reformer who quite literally changed the face of healthcare as we know it.
Indeed. When you think of Florence Nightingale, your mind likely jumps straight to nursing. Perhaps a gentle hand holding a lamp over a wounded soldier. But what's truly fascinating here, what we want you to grasp, is how her incredibly diverse interests and her relentless, almost obsessive drive allowed her to synthesize information from wildly different fields, from complex mathematics to the practicalities of hospital sewage systems, and use it to create systemic, life-saving change.
Right, connecting those dots.
We're going to connect the dots between her deeply personal calling, her groundbreaking and often brutally challenging work in the Crimean War, and her lasting global legacy that continues to influence modern healthcare today. You're going to discover an aha moment about the sheer transformative power of data, combined with compassionate, determined leadership.
Florence Nightingale's journey began in a world far removed from the grime and chaos of a military hospital. Born in Florence, Italy on May 12, 1820, she entered the world as a daughter of the exceptionally affluent Nightingale family. Her father, William Edward Nightingale, a wealthy landowner, and her mother, Frances Smith. Imagine growing up with every comfort imaginable, a life of privilege that included extensive European travels during her early years. So much so that her older sister was even named Parthenope, after the Greek name for Naples, where she was born.
Quite the privileged upbringing.
Her early education, a rich tapestry of classics, Euclides, Aristotle, the Bible, was overseen first by governesses and then by her Cambridge-educated father. This was a destiny of drawing room accomplishments, societal gatherings, and, eventually, a suitable marriage. Yet, amidst all this comfort and expectation, Florence felt drawn to something entirely different, something that would have not just surprised but genuinely shocked many in her social circle.
This raises a truly important question. What compels someone from such an extraordinarily privileged background to so utterly defy the rigid societal expectations of her time? For Florence, the sources tell us, it was a profound and unwavering divine call, experienced at just 17 in 1837. This internal spiritual directive pointed her towards nursing, a profession that in mid-19th century Britain was associated with women of the absolute lowest social standing.
Yeah, the reputation was terrible back then.
Oh, absolutely. The common perception of nurses then was not one of compassion or skill, but rather of untrained individuals with a reputation for being ignorant, promiscuous, and inebriated. For an affluent family like the Nightingales, whose daughters were destined for marriage into similarly respectable families, the idea of Florence associating with, let alone becoming, one of these women was not just distasteful, but a profound social disgrace that threatened their entire family standing. It was, quite simply, unthinkable.
And it wasn't a fleeting fancy. She faced immense family opposition, especially from her formidable mother, who tried every tactic imaginable to distract her. Balls, concerts, societal gatherings, even elaborate attempts to arrange suitable friendships, anything to steer her away from this utterly unacceptable path. But Florence was driven by an unshakable conviction, a deep-seated desire to be useful to her fellow beings, to dedicate herself wholeheartedly to the unfortunates, the weak, the sick, the suffering, and the defenseless, as one powerful source eloquently puts it.
It wasn't just a disagreement.
No, this wasn't just a polite disagreement. It was a deeply emotional battle of wills that, as the years passed, truly fractured family relationships. Her mother saw it as an ultimate betrayal of their class and her daughter's potential future. Florence, however, viewed it as a divine mandate she could not betray, confronting not only her family but also the deeply entrenched, rigid societal conventions of the era, which saw her chosen path as completely outside her social range and poorly regarded by high society.
What's truly fascinating here is how her intellectual curiosity, her sheer thirst for knowledge, extended far beyond what were considered traditional feminine pursuits of the day. In 1840, at a time when her family still vehemently opposed her desired path into nursing, she expressed a fervent desire to study mathematics. Again, this was met with her mother's immediate disapproval, who famously feared it would make Florence too masculine.
Right, the classic fear back then.
Yet her father, despite his initial hesitation and urging for her to pursue more appropriate subjects, eventually allowed her to pursue it. It seems his own love for mathematics, which he himself had passed on to her, ultimately won out over his initial societal concerns, recognizing her exceptional intellectual capacity.
And she didn't just dabble, she absolutely devoured it. She immersed herself in arithmetic, geometry, and algebra, tutored by renowned figures like James Joseph Sylvester, a giant of mathematics, who, alongside Arthur Cayley, developed what's known as invariant theory. Now, without getting bogged down in the complex intricacies of the math itself, the key takeaway here is the type of mind she was exposed to, one focused on identifying fundamental truths, consistent structures, and patterns that remained constant even amidst changing variables.
Exactly, that analytical framework.
This abstract mathematical thinking was subtly yet powerfully shaping her approach, preparing her to identify constant causes of disease amidst chaotic, ever-shifting hospital environments. It said she was even considered Sylvester's most distinguished pupil, a testament to her sharp intellect. Before she formally entered nursing school, she spent time tutoring children in these very subjects, showing both her aptitude and her genuine commitment to mastering the discipline.
And her interest didn't stop there. It also led her to study the groundbreaking work of the Belgian scientist Adolphe Cayley, who famously applied statistical methods to social sciences, coining the term moral statistics.
Yeah.
This was a truly radical concept for the time, using cold, hard data to understand and potentially improve human behavior, crime rates, or critically, public health trends.
So using numbers for social good, essentially.
Precisely. It directly influenced Nightingale's burgeoning belief that you could quantify suffering, that you could use those seemingly abstract numbers to drive concrete social reform, making the invisible human costs of poor conditions undeniably visible. This profound love for numbers, this deep understanding of how to meticulously analyze and interpret data, was a crucial, almost secret foundation for her later, much more public and utterly revolutionary work.
Her early experiences, even before Crimea, were absolutely pivotal in shaping her future as a tireless reformer. Knowing her family firmly opposed any direct hospital work in 1845, viewing nursing as completely unsuitable for a well-educated woman given its prevailing reputation, she found a workaround. She started by caring for sick friends and family, which provided a more private, acceptable avenue for her calling, allowing her to gain practical experience while still navigating societal constraints.
A sort of quiet rebellion almost.
Yeah, exactly. Then, during European travels in 1849, with family friends Charles and Selina Bracebridge, she proactively seized every opportunity to meticulously study different hospital systems. This wasn't just a leisurely tour, she was on a mission. She carried notebooks, meticulously sketching hospital layouts, documenting staffing levels, noting the flow of patients, where the kitchens were, how waste was handled, even making observations about air quality.
Wow. She was essentially doing early health systems research on her own dime.
She was quantifying conditions, creating a comparative database in her mind long before spreadsheets existed, allowing her to identify best practices and, crucially, worst practices. She trained briefly at Catholic and Protestant institutions like the Institute of St. Vincent de Paul in Alexandria, Egypt, and critically, Pastor Theodor Fleidner's Institute of Protestant Deaconesses in Kaiserswerth, Germany, where she completed 3 months of rigorous formal training in 1851. She also visited a hospital in Saint-Germain near Paris, run by the Sisters of Mercy.
So she was actively seeking out different models, different ways of doing things.
She was actively acquiring practical knowledge and firsthand experience of how hospitals truly operated across Europe, far beyond what any textbook could teach.
That's right. This wasn't just casual observation. It was proto-consulting in action, a systematic gathering of knowledge with a clear purpose. She visited hospitals, prisons, asylums, and orphanages, asking countless questions, making annotations, and classifying figures into tables. She even delved into sanitary conditions in Berlin hospitals.
And then she made a really public move.
Yes. By August 22nd, 1853, she took an incredibly significant and public step, accepting an unpaid superintendent role at the Establishment for Ladies during illness in London, a post she held until October 1854. This wasn't just a job or a resume builder. It was a concrete public commitment that irrevocably cemented her break from family expectations and truly proved her capabilities.
All right. She was all in.
She was diving headfirst into the very world she was determined to change, demonstrating a level of commitment and quiet defiance that hinted at the unstoppable force she was about to become.
Here's where her story takes a dramatic, almost cataclysmic turn. The Crimean War erupted in March 1854, a brutal conflict involving the Russian Empire against an alliance of the UK, France, and Turkey. The battlefields themselves were horrifying, but what truly shocked the British public was the equally brutal and far deadlier reality behind the lines. One source describes how the British troops, after landing near Sevastopol, were effectively condemned to perish not by enemy fire, but due to catastrophic logistical failures, rampant disease, and a complete breakdown of medical services.
Unimaginable conditions, the stench of death, the cries of the wounded, the sheer unimaginable squalor. These became the daily realities for British soldiers in Crimea. And what was happening in the so-called hospitals was arguably even more horrifying than the fighting itself.
And the press jumped on it?
Oh, they did. The British press, most notably The Times, launched a relentless campaign exposing the abysmal conditions. It was a scandal that gripped the nation. Until the mid-19th century, field hospitals offered virtually no organized, effective care. Overcrowding, a complete and utter lack of sanitation, and inadequate treatments meant that soldiers were dying in horrifying, almost unbelievable numbers.
The statistic is staggering.
Our sources indicate that soldiers were 7 times more likely to die from disease in the hospital than from their wounds on the battlefield. Think about that. You survived the cannon fire, the bayonet charge, only to succumb to cholera or typhus in a place meant to heal you. Epidemics raged through the barracks, with soldiers lying on dirty floors surrounded by vermin without even basic provisions like mattresses, clean clothing, or enough food. The British medical services were universally described as totally ineffective, utterly overwhelmed, and unprepared.
It was into this inferno that Florence stepped. On October 21st, 1854, armed with a powerful letter from her friend Sidney Herbert, the Secretary of War at the time, she arrived in Scutari, an Asian suburb of Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, with a hand-picked team of 38, or as some sources say, 40, volunteer nurses. They were met not with gratitude, but with a scene of absolute chaos and despair. Wounded soldiers lay suffering, receiving woefully inadequate treatments.
Yet one chilling account describes how the atmosphere of the barracks hospital at night was impossible to describe, the tangible miasma of sickness and death, and that sick people placed in those beds died quickly. It was a landscape of human suffering on an unimaginable scale.
And the challenges were immediate.
Her challenges were immense, multifaceted, and immediate from the very moment she disembarked. It wasn't just the visible physical degradation, the pervasive filth, hospitals literally infested with rats and other vermin, a severe and crippling lack of basic supplies like food, clean clothing, even adequate surgeons and medicine, and unsanitary operating environments where amputations were performed in open, dirty wards.
But also resistance from the establishment.
Yes, she also faced deep-seated institutional resistance from the military doctors already there. They viewed her and her nurses as intrusive outsiders, a band of meddling women disrupting their established, albeit failing, order. There was significant, deeply entrenched professional and gender bias against women working in such roles, particularly in a military setting. Her initial task was therefore twofold: not just providing urgent care, but fundamentally overcoming this entrenched prejudice, fighting military authorities every step of the way to even begin to reform the collapsing hospital system.
It was amidst this harrowing reality that the enduring legend of the Lady of the Lamp emerged. This iconic image, famously popularized by press reports, notably from the Times, depicted her making solitary rounds at night, lamp in hand, moving through the cavernous, darkened wards of the British hospital in Scutari, offering comfort and solace to the sick and wounded. It's a powerful, deeply moving image, highlighting her profound compassion and self-sacrifice, and it undoubtedly resonated with a public desperate for a hero. But as compelling as this legend is, it barely scratches the surface of her actual, far more revolutionary and scientifically rigorous work.
Exactly. While her compassion was indeed undeniable and certainly contributed to her iconic status, her true genius, the profound innovation that ultimately saved countless lives, lay in her organizational prowess and her almost radical commitment to evidence. She didn't just feel empathy, she acted with analytical precision. She immediately began meticulously collecting data and organizing a systematic, detailed system of records.
Which was not standard practice at all.
Not even close. This information wasn't just for show, nor was it merely for accountability. It was her primary, indispensable tool for reform. She leveraged her deep mathematical knowledge to calculate mortality rates with shocking accuracy, proving beyond doubt that the problem wasn't simply individual wounds or bad luck, but a systemic environmental crisis. For example, Her team discovered with gruesome precision that the primary water supply to the hospital passed directly through the putrid remains of a dead horse, highlighting a critical and grotesque need for fundamental sanitation improvements. They also found that latrines were open, overflowing, and completely lacked cleaning methods.
Wow, just wow. The numbers really tell the story then.
The numbers speak for themselves, and they are, quite frankly, astonishing. When Florence Nightingale first arrived in Scutari, the mortality rate among the soldiers was a horrifying 60%. But by February 1855, just a few months after her interventions began, that rate had already dropped significantly to 42.7%.
Still terrible, but a huge improvement.
A huge improvement, yes. And then by spring, after she had established demonstrably clean water supplies, systematically addressed the terrible drainage issues, and crucially, used her own funds, money sent to her by the public through the Nightingale Fund, to buy essential items like fresh fruits, vegetables, and standard hospital equipment, the rate plummeted dramatically to an almost unbelievable 2.2%.
From 60% down to 2.2%
Yeah.
in months.
Think about that. From 60% to 2.2% in a matter of months. This was not mere compassionate nursing. This was strategic public health intervention, driven by meticulous data collection and a profound scientific understanding of hygiene. She also ensured soldiers were distributed in well-ventilated rooms, avoiding overcrowding, and she focused relentlessly on improving their nutrition and ensuring they received necessary medications and treatments.
It wasn't incremental improvement. It was a paradigm shift that fundamentally redefined what it meant to care for the sick.
It was the birth of modern public health in action, revealing that data is compassion. She showed that understanding the numbers behind human suffering isn't cold or clinical. It's the most effective, most powerful way to eliminate it.
So what did this all mean for understanding her lasting impact? Florence wasn't just collecting raw numbers and hoping for the best. She was transforming them into persuasive, undeniable, and visually compelling arguments that even a skeptical, resistant government couldn't ignore. One of her most iconic and genuinely groundbreaking contributions was the diagram of the rose, later widely known as the polar area diagram, which she herself referred to as crestas, or ridges, reflecting its distinct visual form.
Ah, yes, the famous diagram.
Imagine trying to explain complex mortality data to a resistant official or a politician with a short attention span. Florence Nightingale didn't just present reams of tables and figures, she pioneered a visual language that cut through the noise. This innovative statistical chart graphically represented the causes of mortality during the Crimean War from 1854 to 1856. The external blue wedges strikingly showed deaths from preventable diseases like cholera and typhus, which were almost entirely due to poor sanitation and environmental factors.
The biggest killers.
Right. The red inner wedges showed deaths from combat wounds, while the black wedges represented other causes. It vividly immediately illustrated that disease, not battle wounds, was the overwhelming primary killer of British soldiers. For instance, in January 1855, out of a total of 3,168 deaths among British soldiers, a staggering 2,761 died from contagious diseases, while only 83 died from wounds and 324 from other causes. The diagram made the invisible, devastating impact of disease starkly visible and undeniable.
Exactly. Her diagram made the horrific, silent killer of disease so undeniably stark. With a total British Army strength of 32,393 that month, Nightingale meticulously calculated a mortality rate of 1,174 per 10,000 soldiers, with an astonishing 1,023 of those deaths attributed directly to contagious diseases. She effectively showed, through this powerful and easily digestible visual representation, that if this rate had continued, diseases alone would have killed the entire British Army in Crimea.
That's a powerful argument.
It's undeniable. This irrefutable data, presented in such an accessible and impactful format, was instrumental in convincing a previously resistant British government to not just change policy, but fundamentally change the design of healthcare centers and implement widespread sanitary reforms across the military and beyond. It was a masterclass in data visualization for social change.
Her statistical insights weren't limited to the war itself either. Upon her return to London in August 1856, just 4 months after the peace treaty was signed, she discovered something equally alarming and deeply troubling. Peacetime soldiers aged 20-35 had double the mortality rate of civilians their age.
Double. Yeah. In peacetime.
Double. This raises an important question that she immediately asked. If these dire and deadly conditions were so prevalent in the military, even during peacetime, what was happening in civilian life? What could this tell us about the broader public health of the nation? She relentlessly used her statistics and her burgeoning influence to advocate for comprehensive sanitary reform, not just in military hospitals, but extending her focus beyond the battlefield and promoting improvements in general public health across the entire country.
Her relentless lobbying and the undeniable evidence she presented caught the attention of the highest echelons of power. None other than Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, as well as the Prime Minister, Lord Palmerston. Her persistent desire for a formal, independent investigation into Army health, supported by her compelling, visually striking data, was finally granted in May 1857, leading to the creation of the Royal Commission on the Health of the Army.
So she got the government's attention big time.
Absolutely. This was no longer just about nursing or battlefield care. This was about fundamentally shaping national health policy and improving public welfare on a grand scale. She didn't stop there. She also undertook an exhaustive statistical report concerning sanitary conditions in rural India, a British colony at the time, promoting the introduction of medical care improvements and public health services there, demonstrating her truly global perspective on health reform.
India, too. Wow.
She saw patterns of suffering and inefficiency, whether in a Crimean barrack or a remote Indian village.
And her brilliance was recognized not just by politicians, but in the most rigorous of scientific communities. Her profound contributions to Army health and her pioneering, indeed groundbreaking use of hospital statistics led to her becoming the very first woman to be elected a member of the Royal Statistical Society in 1858.
The first woman. That's huge.
It wasn't just an honor, it was a profound recognition of her scientific rigor, her meticulous data collection methods, and the undeniable transformative impact of her data-driven approach. It broke barriers, not just for herself, but for all women in science, highlighting her intellectual prowess far beyond traditional female roles. She was also made an honorary member of the American Statistical Association in 1874, further solidifying her international scientific recognition.
Okay, so post-Crimea, she becomes largely bedridden, right? But that doesn't stop her.
Not even close. Post-Crimea, despite becoming largely bedridden for almost the entire remainder of her incredibly long life due to an illness, likely brucellosis, contracted during the war, Florence Nightingale never stopped her campaign for health reform. Imagine being almost entirely confined to your bed for 50 years, suffering from chronic pain and spells of depression, yet becoming an even greater force for change than when you were physically active.
It's astonishing. Her sickbed became her command center.
This period wasn't one of quiet retirement for Florence. It was her intellectual engine room. From her sick bed, she corresponded tirelessly, publishing an astonishing 150 to 200 books, reports, and pamphlets. Her most enduring legacy in the public eye began in 1860 with the establishment of the Nightingale Training School for Nurses at St. Thomas's Hospital in London, starting with just 10 hand-picked students.
This school, funded by the Nightingale Fund, a remarkable public fund of £50,000 raised in her honor during her time in Crimea, a testament to the unprecedented public admiration for her work, was truly revolutionary. It was built on two core transformative principles. First, nurses needed practical hands-on training in specially organized hospitals, meaning their education was integrated directly into the real-world medical environment, moving beyond rote learning.
Learning by doing, essentially.
Exactly. The other crucial principle was that they needed to live in a suitable, supervised home environment that fostered moral and disciplined living, providing character formation alongside professional skills. This was a direct and deliberate response to the prior, deeply negative reputation of nurses as untrained, disreputable, often associated with ignorance, promiscuity, and inebriation. She meticulously observed her students' character through monthly diaries they kept, and even insisted on teaching them to write if their penmanship was poor, demonstrating her holistic approach to professionalism.
Her work quite literally transformed nursing from a low-status, often disreputable occupation into a highly respectable and professional career for women. Imagine the profound societal shift this represented. For countless women, it offered a new, recognized professional path beyond the traditional confines of the home and marriage, providing a model for independent existence and meaningful contribution to society.
It wasn't just about healthcare, it was about female emancipation through professionalization.
Absolutely.
She solidified this transformation with her seminal work, Notes on Nursing, What It Is and What It Is Not, published in 1859, which is universally considered the first modern nursing textbook. This remarkably accessible book was quickly translated into many languages, disseminating her principles of care, hygiene, and environmental management widely across the globe.
And it wasn't just about treatment, right? It was about the whole environment.
Precisely. It outlined essential principles of care and hygiene, fundamentally challenging the prevailing passive belief that patients only needed medical treatment. She argued passionately that patients needed the best possible environment for nature to act and heal. Cleanliness, fresh air, light, warmth, quiet, and a proper diet were just as crucial as any medicine. Other influential works included Notes on Hospitals in 1859, which advocated for better ventilation, drainage, and cleanliness in hospital design, and Notes on Nursing for the Laboring Classes in 1861, extending her focus on practical health advice to broader public health for the poor.
Beyond her prolific publications, she also laid the groundwork for a rigorous code of ethics for the nursing profession, ensuring a moral and professional standard that elevated the entire field. She significantly improved home nursing, which is seen as the first crucial step towards the future British National Health Institute, laying the conceptual foundation for universal health care.
That connection is fascinating.
Her influence extended internationally, too, a testament to her global vision. She meticulously consulted the U.S. government on Army health during the American Civil War, exchanging detailed correspondence on best practices. She also provided invaluable medical advice to the British War Cabinet for the Army in Canada. She truly was a global health advisor, orchestrating monumental change, even while largely confined to her bed for much of her later life.
Florence Nightingale believed fiercely in rigorous standards and unwavering accountability for the nursing profession. She insisted that nurse training should involve both the acquisition of theoretical knowledge, rigorously proven by examination, and the observation of character, which she meticulously tracked through those monthly diaries kept by students. Her Nightingale nurses were intended primarily for public institutions, not just private care for the wealthy, establishing a higher professional model that prioritized public service and universal access to quality care.
She really focused on standards and accountability.
She did. She also applied her statistical prowess to investigate alarmingly high mortality rates in institutional childbirths, concluding in her 1871 volume, Maternity Institutions, that smaller rooms and separated pavilions were crucial remedies for reducing deadly infections. She demonstrated with data that mortality drastically increased when too many maternity cases were treated in the same ward or mixed with medical and surgical cases, proving that environment was paramount.
She pushed relentlessly for a standardized system of independent examination and registration for qualified nurses, ensuring technical excellence and protecting the public from incompetent practitioners. Her influence was so profound that by 1887, Nightingale trained matrons and inspectors, carrying her principles and methods, were working in hospitals and institutions across the UK, Australia, Canada, India, Ceylon, Germany, and Sweden.
Truly global reach.
The goal was to ensure that a nurse certified by an independent board had reached a certain level of expertise, including a minimum of 3 years of practical hospital training. Beyond her direct impact on nursing, she was also a vocal proponent for the broader emancipation of women, advocating for women to extend their influence beyond the confines of the home to vital public spheres like schools, prisons, hospitals, and poorhouses. She didn't just open a door for women in nursing, she truly championed women's roles in all aspects of society.
Her profound impact was recognized with numerous accolades throughout her life and posthumously. Queen Victoria herself granted her the Royal Red Cross in 1883 for her outstanding work, a rare honor. Then, in 1907, King Edward VII bestowed upon her the Order of Merit, making her the first woman ever to receive this exceptionally prestigious honor, a direct acknowledgement of her unparalleled contributions to the nation.
The first woman ever. Incredible.
In 1908, she was given the keys of the City of London, a testament to her towering standing and the public's deep reverence for her.
Despite spending much of her later life, from her mid-30s onward, bedridden and eventually losing her sight by 1891 and then her memory by 1906, her influence continued to grow, primarily through her prolific writing. As we mentioned, she published approximately 150 to 200 books, reports, and pamphlets, tirelessly campaigning for health standards, disseminating her knowledge globally, and effectively managing a vast network of reformers and policymakers.
Her legacy wasn't just in her physical actions, but in the intellectual groundwork she meticulously laid through her vast body of work, continuing to shape public health for decades after her active nursing career.
It's truly fascinating that while she was revolutionizing nursing and public health, another humanitarian giant, Henry Dunant, the Swiss businessman and founder of the Red Cross, was also at work, driven by the horrors he witnessed at the Battle of Solferino. They were both responding to the unimaginable suffering of war, and they respected each other's efforts, but they also had a significant, even fundamental philosophical difference regarding the optimal approach to assisting the war wounded.
Right. Dinan indeed greatly admired Nightingale, even paying public tribute to her work at a conference in London in 1872, calling her a noble woman who has inaugurated a new era in the spirit of universal charity. However, despite Dunant being invited to visit her, they never met in person. The sources clearly show they diverged significantly on how to best assist war wounded.
So, what was the core difference?
Dunant advocated for the creation of international volunteer societies formed in peacetime, ready to intervene in war as neutral parties to provide immediate relief and care. His vision was of a new kind of international solidarity, creating a neutral space for humanity amidst the chaos of conflict. Nightingale, on the other hand, staunchly believed that governments held the sole, unambiguous responsibility for army care. Her fear was that if non-governmental organizations like the Red Cross stepped in, it would inadvertently let governments off the hook, making war easier to wage by externalizing the cost of human suffering.
Ah, so she feared it would reduce government accountability.
Precisely. She believed the full horror and financial burden of war should fall squarely on the governments, forcing them to be accountable for the lives of their soldiers, thereby making them less likely to engage in conflict. She also didn't believe that warring powers would actually respect international law, which was a core tenet of the Red Cross movement. It was a profound philosophical split. One advocated for international neutral humanitarian intervention, the other for unyielding government accountability.
Despite these differing approaches to intervention, her lamp, her guiding spirit of compassionate care, did indeed shine bright for the Red Cross movement in an indirect yet profoundly powerful way. The International Red Cross now awards the prestigious Florence Nightingale Medal to nurses globally, recognizing exceptional service and courage in the field. Over 1,000 have been awarded since the first attribution on May 12, 1920, her centennial birthday, a direct nod to her enduring influence on the profession worldwide.
So her spirit lived on, even within the movement she had philosophical differences with.
Her spirit of charity, though differently expressed in terms of organizational structure, undeniably influenced the global humanitarian landscape.
Her legacy is celebrated annually on her birthday, May 12th, as International Nurses Day, a global recognition of the nursing profession she so profoundly shaped and elevated. The Nightingale Pledge, a modified Hippocratic oath created in her honor in 1893, is still taken by countless nurses upon graduation, symbolizing their commitment to her principles of ethical, compassionate, and professional care.
And the WHO recognized her bicentennial too.
Yes, in 2020, the World Health Organization, WHO, even declared it the International Year of the Nurse and Midwife in tribute to her bicentennial. What's truly fascinating here is how her reputation transcended cultures and geographies. She became so revered that in Japan she was deified as Kwannon, the goddess of pity, influencing the Japanese Red Cross to train nurses in her spirit of charity and service from 1890 onwards.
Deified, that speaks volumes.
It really does. It speaks volumes about the universal appeal and profound impact of her work.
She passed away peacefully in London on August 13, 1910, at the grand age of 90, never having married, her entire extraordinary life dedicated wholeheartedly to public service. Her immense contributions are honored by the Crimea Monument erected in 1915 in Waterloo Place, London, a direct testament to her work during the war and her transformative impact on Army health. Her story, as we've seen today, became legendary, truly inspiring change across the globe, a beacon of light that far outshone any single lamp.
Much more than just the lamp.
So our deep dive today has truly revealed that Florence Nightingale was so much more than simply the Lady of the Lamp. She was a fearless social reformer who challenged deeply entrenched societal norms and prejudices, carving out a new, respectable path for women. She was a brilliant statistician who used data, not just compassion, to drive monumental, life-saving change in healthcare design and policy. And she was a foundational architect of modern nursing, systematically transforming it from a disreputable, often dangerous practice into a respected, educated, and vital profession for women across the world.
She exemplified how profound compassion, when combined with rigorous analytical thinking and an unwavering commitment to evidence-based practice, can fundamentally reshape society's approach to health and welfare. Her ability to challenge conventional wisdom, whether in hospital design, professional training, or even the very concept of government responsibility for public health, speaks volumes about her unwavering determination and singular vision. She truly made data sing and spurred action, forcing the world to see the suffering that was previously invisible.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our own age of information overload, where data is everywhere, flooding our screens and conversations, but impactful, data driven change often feels elusive and slow. What profound lessons can we still learn today from Florence Nightingale's extraordinary ability to turn raw numbers into concrete action and profound human impact? What stands out to you about her unique power to make the invisible undeniably visible and then demand change?